Welcome to a special festive edition of 90% Geek. As you can see, I have arrayed before me a High Elf army, and there's a reason for that. Christmas time, it's horrible outside, but it's nice and cozy indoors. The perfect time, I would suggest, if you've got some time off work, to perhaps crack on with a painting project that you've always been meaning to do. I've got a plethora of old world armies just sat lingering on the shelf awaiting a paint job, and I thought that perhaps this time of year was the perfect time to get those elf off the shelf. Yes, desperate rhyming Christmas plug there. The idea behind this video series then is I'm going to paint a 1,000 point High Elf army for the old world, and I'm going to keep uploading regular videos so that you can see how that army is progressing and perhaps pick up some painting tips, see what colour scheme I'm working on and how I achieved it. Let's get started then in this very first episode with me introducing you to what I've picked for this High Elf army. So it's got a nice kind of mix of units. There's some units that I think are particularly badass in the old world, and I've made sure I've included those. There's some also that I just really wanted to paint, and there's some bits and bobs that I've had lingering for a while that have perhaps had some very old paint jobs on and needed a touch up. To that end, I have got 15 High Elf Spearmen, just regular city militia to form kind of a hard, tough core to my army, a detachment of Elven archers to go with them to provide some long-range covering fire. I love that High Elves get kind of the regimental rules in this edition. I think that's a really kind of nice touch, given that why would they be any less well drilled than, for example, the men of the Empire? Then for some hard hitters, I've got a big old unit of sword masters, 15 sword masters, well, 14 and a wizard in there. Level 2 wizard to lead my army, because High Elves have, frankly, some of the best magic in the game. And then to add some extra firepower to the army, I've got the classic Eagle repeater bolt thrower, some Shadow Warriors, and some Illyrian Reavers, because these models are just too beautiful not to paint. Because under the heading of models that I've always wanted to paint, I've got a unit of 10 White Lions. I don't think they're necessarily the best in this edition, but they are such lovely models that they've just been crying out for a paint job. And finally, just, for some extra kind of anti-enemy artillery or enemy characters if they're foolish enough to leave their characters out alone on the battlefield. Michael, I'm looking at you. I've got a Great Eagle, because again, what elf army isn't complete without like a big flappy bird thing? So that's the army. I've started 3 models just to kind of test out the colour scheme, and I will show you a close-up of those in just a moment, but that is a Swordmaster, which is painted pretty much to completion. That's painted up to try and match the colour scheme from the Tears of Isha books that was released back in 5th edition, kind of a blue and gold kind of colour scheme. And then I've got an Illyrian Reaver, which follows through with that colour scheme, which is what I'll be carrying throughout the army, really. But I've added some purple in there, which is the colour of Illyria. And I've got a Shadow Warrior that I've painted up in kind of darker, more brooding Nagaroth type colours to represent one of the, the lost sons of Nagarythe. Okay, let's just show you some close-ups on that, and then I will get started with painting the first unit on this, and we'll talk through how I'm going to achieve the colour scheme on that. I've moved the camera in closer for this part then. I'm going to move the majority of the army out of the way, and I'm just going to keep the spearmen out for the moment, because I want to show you how I've painted the blued steel that makes up a large part of the colour scheme for this army. This is a colour scheme that's particularly useful if you're doing, for example, High Elves, but also you could use it on, for example, Bretonnians, Grey Knights it works perfectly for. It's a fairly easy colours to do, and I'm going to be doing it on pretty much all of the kind of armour plate, the Athilmar barding and the Athilmar armour of the High Elf army. So let me just clear the decks. I've got every colour that I need for painting this whole army just set up in a couple of my travel size really useful boxes here. I've grouped them by colours that I need, so at a quick glance I can just look at these boxes and go, that's the colour I need. I'm going to start off here appropriately with some Grey Knight steel. Give it a good shake, grab myself an appropriate brush, and I just want to get one of these spearmen, and I'm going to apply this all over the kind of scaled male lower half of his torso, and over the breastplate, the bracers, and that classic pointy hat elven helm that he is wearing. Just being careful to avoid the face and hands, because I've undercoated this, and pretty much all of the elves in fact, with a quick spray of white, and I don't want to get anything on those areas because they're going to be done using my flesh painting technique a little bit later. Let's do the braces as well. Actually, I'm going to leave the braces because just looking at them, at first glance, I think those might look better against the blue cloth with gold, because unlike some of the other models, there's not going to be that much gold on this model. But I will paint the spear tip with the Grey Knight steel. Okay, that is now dry, and I've managed to get a whole bunch other elves undercoated with the metal as well. Next stage then for my blued steel is a quick dose of a Sherman Blue contrast paint. It's no surprise, contrast paints are great when it comes to doing different kind of slightly coloured metallics. What I found works really well with this is just to essentially put a little bit on the model itself, add some water to my brush, and then just thin it out on the model. So just kind of move it around on the model itself. Doesn't matter if I get any of it on the robes, because I'm going to be going over that with some blue paint anyway. But I do want to avoid the face. Not the face! Thinning it down like this just lets it get into the recesses and turns it from being kind of a candy blue gloss metallic to being more of a slightly shaded blue metallic. Just move the paint around a little bit. Quite happy with that. Get it so it pools nicely in the recesses of the armour and the spear tip as well. There we go. I'll just show you a close-up of that. Then I will, as before, let this dry, do all the rest of them, and then show you the final stage. There we go. As you can see, the blue's just kind of nicely pooling in the recesses of the armour. It's already looking really nice. Final stage on this blued steel then. I've got a pot of Runefang steel. You can, for like characters and stuff, work up some extra stages, so you can do another layer of like Grey Knight's armour and Ironbreaker and stuff before you get to the stage. But for the line infantry, I'm just going to go straight to my highlight colour, which is, like I said, Runefang steel. The aim here is to leave the blue showing at kind of the edges of the armour and in the creases. Just pick up the highest points of the armour so that you're left with an overall suggestion of blue steel. Blue steel, I've just realised that's the Ben Stiller move from Zoolander. There we go. It's coming up really nicely. I'll show you a photo of the finished model in a minute. And then for the scale at the bottom, I'm literally just going to drag my brush over the top. It's almost like dry brushing, but it's just kind of a... I just want to pick up the top edges, really, of these armour plates, leaving that blue showing through at the bottom. There we go, so that you do end up, it is properly a silvery steel colour. On the spear tip, I'm just going to do either side of the cross trees, run my paintbrush edge along the thickest edge of the leaf-shaped blade, and then again just run my paintbrush along the edges of the spearhead. Just pick that little ridge up along the top of the, almost like a little visor there. There we go. The decoration on that I can pick up with some gold. There we go. Okay, let me show you a close-up of this guy. There we go, there's a close-up of him. Right, that's part one then. Come back next time when I will be showing you how I am going to do the gold armour on these guys. So this is kind of the gilded armour on the Swordmasters, gold detail on things like the bracers for the spearmen, and all the other videos that are to come as I show you all the other stages and how I paint them. Thank you very much for watching. I will catch you next time.